Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the GastroCast, the Monday edition. We couldn't wait till Tuesday or Wednesday. Friday was popping. Regional finals all across Texas, and we have our state semifinal matchups to talk about. Before we get going, some housekeeping. G1 series. We're meeting this week to start talking about all the different conferences, the pooling. We're starting to organize teams and start the schedule build out for that, so it's closer than ever. King of the Court, I'll be dropping a committed graphics, a committed team list today. We have shoe teams, we have top independents all over the region. We're excited to kick off Gasso the right way, and then two cities, one Gasso, April 3rd and 4th. Um, Program directors, families, keep that on your schedule. It's going to be a big weekend. Friday, Saturday with Easter Sunday. We don't need y'all playing basketball on Sunday, so we're going to get y'all in and out for some really high level bump in Duncanville and Houston. And as always, if you don't hear your name talked about today, there's always a newsletter at the end of the weekend. Lyndon does a great job organizing that for us. And as always, follow us on social media and tag us. Um, we get going, especially during game night. So be checking our Twitter and other profiles there. All right, fellas. We want to get on Monday today, and so we could talk about Friday. So right away, what most caught your attention on Friday during our regional final matchups, Blue?
I think it got real. The competition just stepped up. You had a lot of people fighting for their lives. I won't get into the details of it, but Beaumont, Westbrook having to play Randall the other day and having to come back. Like same thing with Birdville against Denton. Denton had beat them twice in district play, and all of a sudden Birdville's up by 10, and then it's the script switches, and then Denton's creeping in or comes back and maybe gets into a double digit lead themselves, and all of a sudden Avery Webb hits a 3-pointer with seconds left. Like, it just got real, and I think that's the exciting part, no matter what round it is. And then we got this week starting. I mean, it's a exciting time.
Lyndon?
Yeah, the chaos that me and you talk about finally arrived, and arrived in a big way. Where you know, and it wasn't just the shot by Avery Webb in that Birdville Denton game. It was 3 minutes up to that point where that game was like a fever dream. Where Denton's up 7, then here comes Birdville, and there's the ball's flying all over the place and just flying out of bounds and stuff like that. But Birdville finds a way, as they so often do, to get back to the state semifinals. You go down to Houston, you had a North Shore team that had also lost twice in district to Atascocita, looking like they caught them in a letdown spot after beating Seven Lakes, where Christian Gibson's hitting shots. They're out and running and led for the majority of 3/4 of that game. Then up steps Carter Savoy, that we'll get into later, with one of the best performances I've seen this postseason, just shooting the ball lights out to help Atascocita get back to the state tournament. We kept talking about the Westlake Judson game, but every time you look up, it was a 1-point lead for the opposite team. I mean, it was snip, snap, 1-point increments the entire time, until Bo Ogden just kind of had the last say, hit a big shot to put them up, put 2 free throws down to get them back to the state semifinals. And then even Saturday, when you go down to the small school ranks, you had Brownfield and Shallowater out there in West Texas at Lubbock Christian, where Brownfield trails the entire game. Shallowater's in control. And then they bring somebody off the bench. He hits a 3 to tie it. They try a home run pass, goes out of bounds. They get a baseline out of bounds with 2 seconds left, win the game after trailing the entire time. They score 5 points in 2 seconds to knock off Shallowater in a very high-level game, very intense crowd out there in West Texas. Quick side note, though, prayers for Coach Lusk. Was injured in a car crash coming back from the girls' state tournament for Shallowater. So our thoughts are with them at this time as well. But yeah, a lot of chaos, a lot of high-level games that we were able to get our eyes on Friday.
No, absolutely. Tim, what caught your attention Friday?
How many good teams are not advancing? When you start looking at how many good teams, first of all, with the matchups, but how many good teams get knocked off and now are not advancing. That in itself, like everybody has talked about thus far, that's what the playoffs are really about. Is at any given night. March Madness is here. But for me, the attention to detail that Brennan had in their scouting report and their game plan. Just kind of looking at what their staff kind of put together from a scouting standpoint, and just the attention to detail they're holding their kids accountable to be able to execute, to be able to slow down a pretty explosive Steel team. Steel's pretty good, when they kind of get their balls going in terms of the three guards that they can have, and for them to kind of get slowed down and really kind of get shut down to the point to where it was tough. It went from roughly a 5-point game to 20 in a hurry. Part of that was Donovan Chris, getting catching fire, in the early part of the third quarter where he knocked down 4 deep ones. But just their defensive effort, and again, going back to the attention to detail, what they wanted to take away and what they wanted to make difficult, and then their execution.
Yeah, I'll finish off. What caught my attention was finally seeing teams that doubt creeped in and how they handle that. Some of these teams hadn't played with a lot of adversity. Like, I'm watching that Randall and Beaumont Westbrook game, and I was live in Conroe when Westbrook beat Randall by 20 or 30. And now all of a sudden you're just looking, and it's just like it's a 3-point game at halftime. And then finally Randall takes the lead, and you're like, well, crap, when's the last time Beaumont's been down this long? Obviously, they had those battles with Beaumont United in district, but you start to wonder what happens when doubt, like, oh, can we actually lose this game? And then you start to look and see, okay, well, why is Beaumont United Westbrook special? And you start to see the studs and the stars stand out. Same thing with the Cy Ranch Duncanville game that was pretty late Friday. Cy Ranch stays around in that game, and you're like, okay, what's about to happen here? So some of these games, I like to see what happens when because we're all humans, all players, coaches, everybody's like, oh, wait, you mentioned the Judson Westlake game. Back and forth, you're like, okay, I have to make a play, because you're starting to looking like the game's almost over. We could lose this. But then also what caught my attention was you get those fun matchups of storied programs where you get the Allen versus North Crowell, and you see what that gym looks like. And that really turns me up even more. And we're going to be looking forward to some other things. But that North Crowley Duncanville game at Wilkerson Grimes, those are just, y'all, Blue, Tim, y'all have done this for a long time. Y'all remember what those packed gyms look like. And it's always fun to get that perfect storm of 2 traditional powerhouses getting to it. So that a lot to Friday was chaos. We were all that's what we look forward to, especially when they're streaming. So moving on, looking forward to what we're going to look forward to here with the state semifinal games all over the state of Texas, by the way. Pay attention to your local beat newspaper, because some of these small towns have huge games coming to town. So if you're just a random person, you can pop up over there and see some high-level games in your 1A or 2A local gym this week.
Shout out Mumford.
Shout out Mumford for sure, because they're getting the doozy. Looking forward, which bracket are y'all still most undecided on? Blue, I'll start with you.
Well, I think it's for me. I'm going to start with Division II and the.
And by the way, before you go, I wrote this down already, and you came in behind me, so you stole this from me, this matchup. But I'll let you go ahead and do it.
Oh, well, I appreciate.
Yes, I'm just gonna let you. I'll call you out.
Well, no, I'm just. Well, the only thing I'm going to say, and you can piggyback off of me because I didn't see that down there. I'm sorry, but I think you got to look at the style of plays right away. I mean, they're kind of different. I think the mindset of Summit is just we're going to try to beat you 94 feet, where Lovejoy is going to spend some time in their offense. They will look for some quick hitters, but I just think there's a little bit of contrast here that makes this interesting enough. Even though I did pick Lovejoy to get to this point, we didn't pick any state winners, which is fine. But I just think that it's an interesting game of unbalance.
No, for sure. Lyndon, what bracket are you most undecided on?
Yeah, we gotta. I mean, we've kind of touched on all these teams several times this playoffs, but it's 5AD1 for me. Just Birdville catching Heritage in a rematch spot of a game they won last year after all the emotion, that they poured into that Denton win, where Frisco Heritage kind of just came out, punched West Mesquite in the mouth, and just cruised to a win after that. This one really, if Birdville shoots it well, which we know they can do, it could be another classic. But you got to slow down Lomax, you got to slow down Howard, and that's a very tall order for anybody right now. But on the other side of that, like you were talking about with Westbrook being challenged by Randall, where everything gets tight, but Elijah Garrett rises to the top and gets them over the line with a free throw with like 9 seconds left, I believe, to win that game against the Leander Glenn team that we'll get into a little bit later, where they got pushed to the final seconds. I believe they won by 1 against No Braunfels in the first round, but since then it's been kind of on cruise control for them, where they're just beating good teams, taking care of their business, where they're kind of the unknown quantity to a lot of the state. But we've seen them in person this year. They're a really tough team, and they can pose all kinds of problems for a Beaumont Westbrook team who just had to fight scratch and claw to get past Randall in the regional final.
Yeah, for sure. I'll hop in here. I'm looking at that Beaumont United versus San Antonio Veterans Memorial game. And the later you get into playoffs, if it's just the beauty of it all. And the beauty can be a track meet, but the beauty can also be first one to 50. And not by both of these teams can put the ball in the basket, but they want to play a certain type of style that, come out and guard our guys. Beaumont United wants to get a lead and say, okay, we're going to put the ball in Peyton Jones's hands, see what you can do about it. San Antonio Vets, they are going to make it nasty. They are going to sell out on every defensive possession. And I'm looking at this. It's going to be a chess match of two high-level physical teams, and that's the one I'm kind of staring at, that I have no idea which way it's going to go. Obviously, and both of these teams know how to get the Vets has been to state. Beaumont United, you know what they do. But if you're a San Antonio program or a San Antonio fan, you're like, oh, we have a shot, because this San Antonio Vets team has flown under the radar, in my opinion, even though they've been leading that district all year long. DJ Jordan's playing hell of a basketball, but they don't have a lot of big name star power. They just all get it done, and they're unselfish, and they're going into this feeling very, very confident about themselves against Beaumont United. Blue, you have something?
Yeah, I was going to add to both of y'all's points here. With the Birdville Heritage matchup, you're looking at Birdville bringing in 3 out of their 5 starters from last year. Heritage has 4 out of their 5. So this is a really true kind of like a redo of last year. Sometimes all 5 seniors are gone, and you can't sit there and really compare the 2 teams. But this year, last year you had Bryson score 20 points. I think Lomax scored 27, and Birdville still won. Like, that's when those guys are combining for nearly 50 points, and you're still winning the game, and you're scoring nearly 80 points. That says a lot. When you look at San Antonio Vets, we can go back to what Steve Perez did there, the head coach of Memorial, back in 2023. They played Dallas Kimball to a 3-point game. They were leading most of the game, and they wound up, it was a 50-47 win for Kimball. But you're talking about long athletes. You're talking about the size differential. When you're looking at the Kimball had those had that going for them compared to what Vets, and I think it's the same thing here with Beaumont United having to play Vets. I think Steve Perez is just going to be watching film, and he'll be efficient at what he's doing, and kind of treat it maybe the same kind of way of, I've been here before as a coach. Let's prepare.
Tim, where is your? I agree with you on this one. What are you most undecided on?
All of the matchups that have been mentioned so far, they have been well thought out, well talked about. But this one here, I think across the state is probably about as even as you can get in terms of Atascocita and Brennan. It's a toss up. It's going to be about what Brennan team are you going to get, what Atascocita team are you going to get, and with them being so evenly matched, having seen both programs, recently, and kind of how their momentum is developing on each side of the bracket, and obviously leading up to a matchup tomorrow night. What X factor is going to show up for each team? I think, as we talked a little bit about off camera a little bit, what X factor is going to show up for these teams here? When I watched Brennan the other night, it could be Jacob Padilla, it could be Sean Montdragon, it could be Isaiah Ward, it could be Delano Tarpley, it could be even Talon Todd, or a number of other guys or situations that Brennan can throw at you. And of course, you have their guy, Donovan Chris, who can catch fire at any point in time. So what part of their scheme is going to ignite their X factor? And then, we'll talk a little bit about it, a little bit later with a couple of other Atascocita players, but their seventh or eighth guy can beat you off the bench. And that's just what makes them dangerous. It's not necessarily what starting five they put out there. It's about what they're doing as a unit collectively. And I think both teams can beat each other. I mean, it's a rematch from early on in the season. There were a couple of pieces missing from each team. Everybody was still in that early November, December stage where they're just trying to feel things out and how they're going to move along throughout the year. And so now each team is playing their brand of basketball that they feel like is going to be the one that can ultimately lead them to a state championship. This is going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be a very physical game. I think it's going to be one that is going to be well coached from both sides. When you look at what Coach Martinez can do from Atascocita, he's been a been there, done that type guy. I spoke with Coach Hale, his assistant, a little bit in depth about things that they're looking forward to. And then, of course, with Cody Cowgill and his staff, him and Ian Ward, that entire staff, they do a really good job on their side in terms of the details. And we talked about it earlier, how detailed their scouting reports are. So this is going to be a well-scouted, well-coached game, and it's going to come down to the X factors, in my opinion.
I agree. And where's that game being played at?
Manor High School. So much like what you just said a while ago in terms of people needing to be paying attention, Manor's not your ideal playoff tab. Ever since we changed from a regional sites to now going to more neutral looks, Manor is a really, really good facility. It's going to be a great environment in there. So it'll be one to definitely watch, and I'll be there in person for sure.
Absolutely. All right. So obviously, congratulations to everybody that's made it here. All these games are high level, but what's a sneaky awesome matchup y'all are looking forward to? I'm seeing how it all plays out. Blue, you want to get us started?
Yeah. I don't know if any of these are sneaky at this point, but what we have to pay attention to is that Little Elm Cy Springs game. So much has been said about Little Elm with their speed, their ability to score very quickly. I just mentioned Frisco Heritage and how they have this 1-2 combo. Same thing with Little Elm. With Candler and Weems. And so they can score a lot. But Cy Springs wants it fast. Cy Springs wants to get into a little bit of also of a dogfight inside because you know what? They do have more size. They do have long athletes that can, all 4 or 5 guys can go and rebound the ball. Once they can rebound, anybody of those guards can go into transition, push it up court. But if you want to play slow, they'll slow it down and work the ball around a little bit. I mean, they have enough athleticism in the middle with Cameron Chambers, who's 6'7", with Ife Bolaji, who's 6'8". So, I mean, they can bring Cameron off the bench and bring him in if he needs to get some minutes there. I mean, when you look at the point guards of Zach Dunn, their point guard, he's going to be fast in the open court. He's going to try to look for creases in those seams in the defense to get the ball out of his hands. CJ Idioju, is another one that can rebound and push the ball and go score and hit 3-pointers. And they're a fast team. So it's not a one-sided, we expected Little Elm to be here. Yes, we did. And I think that this Cy Springs team is just kind of laying back. Let's hit the court and let's get into an alley fight. And I think that this is a very intriguing matchup.
No, I agree. Lyndon?
Yeah, let's go over to 4AD1, West Plains against Dallas Kimball. This is – when you look at last year's Dallas Kimball team, when you had Jalen Dean Vines and Lance Carr and Maury Wesley, this is a different looking team, but they still have that kind of veteran experienced feel to them. Guys like David Coe, Caden Gray, Elijah Yarbrough, guys that have kind of, already put their stamp on, South Dallas, if not further out in the state, to be known quantities, especially to us. But then you have a West Plains team that, let's just call it what it is. They're one of the state's elite defensive units. They're averaging less than 32 points allowed per playoff game. They played Burke Burnett, the number 3 scoring team in Texas, in their regional final game and held them to 40 when they averaged 83 points a game. This is a team that they're just so locked in. And you got guys who can score. Reed Macon, Caden Hooker's kind of their X factor on offense. Ethan Gilliam provides them with some post presence inside. This is a really intriguing matchup in 4AD1. Kimball's been here; they're defending champs for a reason. But this West Plains team, with their defense, may be able to to put a wrench in their plans to go back to back in 4A.
Tim?
Austin Westlake Cy Falls. It's a rematch from an earlier season tournament situation. That game went into overtime, and so when you sit back, you kind of dive into this one a little bit, and you kind of see the momentum. We've talked about Cy Falls and the run that they've been on recently, and they're capable players. Daniel Patton poses a different challenge for most, and one that Westlake hadn't seen in some time now, due to them, obviously playing in different parts of the state. But Daniel Patton is a load, and then you come back on the opposite side of that, and you have Bo Ogden, who we just talked about, most recently, kind of putting the game on his own shoulders, which he's very, very capable. So now what X factors are going to kick in, again, when we start talking about X factors in terms of getting over in these situations, you got Kanadi, who's been playing really well for Westlake, knocking down shots, so he's a kid that you cannot pay no attention to. He's the one that can kind of create for himself. He's shown that ability in a couple of recent games. It really was a kind of surprise for me to be able to see. But then you also have Mac Martin, who is now knocking down shots. When you look at him and his capability, he's kind of one that we've kind of looked at from a staff standpoint and been waiting on to kind of turn it on. In the last game, against Judson, he caught fire early on in the first half. So he's another one that Westlake can kind of throw at you in so many different ways. So this game here is going to be very, very interesting, as it goes through the balance. And they've seen each other. They went to overtime. So let's see what happened with round 2 for these guys.
No, I agree. I'll finish off here. And when we talk about sneaky, what's sneakier than a team that, goes under the radar and plays at like 4 p.m. and just cruises in Mansfield Summit? That's going to be super, super sneaky. And then you have a team in Lovejoy where we were sitting around. We saw no updates. We saw no final scores. I had to find out from my dentist what the Lovejoy Frisco Memorial game final was.
True.
So when you talk about sneaky, you have two teams that are flying under the radar and they don't mind it. And then you have two stars that the casual fan, I hope that if they're just going to pop in to see this game, where is this game at? And is it at 4 p.m.? Is it 4 p.m. somewhere?
No, it's SMU at 7.
Exactly.
It's bright lights. There's no sneaking this one.
No sneaky, but when you have a Jackson Sneed at Mansfield Summit and a Luke Moderson at Lovejoy, these are two just absolute killers. Two of the top most productive unsigned seniors we have in the state of Texas that are going to get the bright lights, and they deserve it. They have both been playing some of their best basketball right now, and these are just two teams that, honestly, they play for the name on the front of their jersey and not the back. And I hope that in a matchup like this, with a lot of prospects on there that are under the radar, that college coaches are going to go find them one and watch this matchup here, because no matter who wins or loses this game, I think both teams just have the makeup of the way they compete, the way they prepare, and the way that they're talented. Every player on the court stock's going to rise in this one. And that's what you're looking for when you're trying to find some of these matchups where we obviously, like the Duncanville North Crowley game, that's going to be electricity. But you have these two teams right here that the winner of this game, I mean, they're going to be a hard out in the state finals. So I'm circling this one as one of the ones I'm really excited to see. Moving on to our final segment for the day. Appreciate everybody rocking with us. Unsung heroes of the playoffs. Who's a guy that's needed to make a play here or there that may not have been the focal point that stepped up in a big moment? We're gonna go just rapid fire this one. Blue, I'll start with you.
Yeah, Carter Savoy from Atascocita hit 6 3-pointers in a game that they were down to one of the rivals in North Shore. He goes for 22 points, 11 rebounds. My goodness, without him on the court, being wide open on the 3-pointers to knock those down, I don't know if Atascocita gets to this round.
Yeah, Lyndon.
Yeah, let's go with Caden Eason and Jonathan Warren for Dallas Carter. Eason as a tone setter with his length and ability to play above the rim. And then when Warren checks into the game, this kid is just a buzzsaw. He's all over the place, rebounding, defending, doing a little bit of everything. One of the key reasons why Carter has it rolling so well right now.
Yeah, for me, Jonathan Fox and Alex Barther. Obviously, we saw the lob that's taken over the country from Hayes to Fox. But when you have two big physical guards, the way they're attacking the paint, they're putting so much pressure on defense, and they're shooting free throws so early in the bonus. And it allows Hayes and Trey Hall to do what they do. But these two guys are playing as they should. Big guards going downhill. Tim?
Leander Glenn, this is another one that you talk about in terms of being well under the radar. People were asking me around the region, like, who is this team and where are they coming from? Well, they've been there. You just have to pay closer attention to them because they were there in the regional finals last year. This time, they were able to get over the hump this year with Orton Roberts and Dallas Hernandez, two seniors that they've kind of relied on heavily over the last several years. And that experience has paid off for them in a big way. They lost a couple of close ones last year during this same time. This year, they've been able to get over the hump. You have Dallas Hernandez, who hit a big one to get past Corpus Christi Flower Bluff just a couple of games ago. And then they come after you and knock off Corpus Christi veterans, a couple of days ago, in a very, very exciting game for them because now they were able to kind of play the pace that they typically like to play. But they are a team that can beat you multiple ways because I have seen them play in lower scoring games. They can be physical. They have a couple of kids that can actually shoot it. And the younger Roberts that can actually play a little bit, but Dallas Hernandez and Orton Roberts set the tone for that group.
Blue?
Yeah, Jacob Padilla from San Antonio Brennan. I mean, this is a guy, as long as he stays out of foul trouble, right, Tim, that he's going to be able to defend. He's going to be able to be their pass dribble shoot guy. Like he brings so much to the table to this Brennan team. He knows how to compete. He knows how to win. I think that he's one of the guys that has let him been a piece of this puzzle here up to this point.
I think with Padilla also real quick that Coach Cowgill trusts him because he has such elite hands to make plays that he's earned the right to try to win some of those 50-50 balls because he's so gifted with just a knack for finding loose balls and just creating deflections on the defensive side. So to your point, he'll get a foul or two, but he'll get 4 or 5 steals in the midst of all that. Lyndon.
Yeah, let's talk about Mikhail Price and Tyler Young from Cy Falls. Like Tim mentioned earlier with the Cy Falls Westlake matchup, as far as it not just being on Bo, it's not all on Daniel Patton for Cy Falls. These guys have been playing at a high level this postseason, stepping up when their numbers called. There's some young guys on this team. These two have kind of been around a little bit more. Mikhail had 25 in one of these playoff games. So I think they're going to be very important to this team if they can make it to the Alamo Dome.
In a low possession game with Duncanville and Cy Ranch, Cy Ranch said, we're not going to let Deuce Hunt beat us anymore in the fourth quarter. And Deuce Hunt attacks, kicks to a Ryland Groom, who hits a big 3. And just being ready for your moment right there and then. They needed that 3, and it was cash. And that's confidence that you want out of your sophomore moving on. So Ryland Groom, unsung hero in that game. Tim?
A kid that is now taken over as the school's leading stealer in terms of steals. He had a post and it broke the team school record in charges early in the year. And so for me, it's a kid that comes out well under the radar. DJ Jordan sets the tone for SA Vets. And when you start talking about their defensive tenacity and everything that they do, this is a young man that embodies that. He's been on varsity now for 3 years, and he's one of those type of kids that has been making plays ever since he's been on varsity. His sophomore year that Blue was talking about earlier in 2023, he came out as a shot maker and was knocking down shots in some critical times for them, in their state tournament run a couple of years ago. Fast forward to this time frame, he's one of those kids that's just doing a little bit of everything for them. If it's a defensive stop that they need to be made, a shot that needs to be made, a pass that needs to be made, you can find DJ Jordan around that particular play. And then you also have Adam Boyd, and so people figure like, okay, well, how is he unsung? Just because he just fills up the stat sheets. And then, when I'm talking to the coaches, when Coach Martinez, Coach Hale, those guys are just in love with this particular kid because he can beat you in so many different ways. And I mean, the other night when I'm watching them play against Seven Lakes, they don't win that game early on the way that they did without Adam Boyd setting the tone for them.
He's kind of their vocal rah-rah guy. If Atascocita needs somebody to start making some noise, chirping a little bit, diving on a loose ball, getting a little frisky, Adam Boyd's the guy. So Atascocita's not going to go to any gym quiet or just kind of wondering what's going on because Adam Boyd's setting that tone for sure. Lyndon, take a sip of water because you're going to get into your bag here with your small school individual matchups to watch. So your floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, in 3A, the individual matchup that I'll have my eyes on, Caden Shaw for Henrietta, Cooper Jones at Paradise, Tuesday night at Denton. And this is a rematch from back in November 18th. I believe both these teams are still in football, so who knows what's going to happen now that they got all their guys on the floor. I coached against Caden at Henrietta as a sophomore, and he's continued to get better. Cooper Jones, one of the better, he's under the radar because he's a 3A kid, but he needs to be on coaches' boards going into this summer, a really clutch gamer type shot maker. In 2A, Mason Langford's been having a great year for Groover, the last undefeated team in the state, but they're going up against Court Gaylor in a Lipan team that they know every part of the Alamo Dome at this point because they're down there so often. Where we always talk about the GPS settings, but they know which seat they want in the locker rooms, all that stuff. They're just one of the best programs in small school Texas basketball. And then finally, 1A, Jarius Williams from Monday, a 6'5" power forward who can do a lot around the rim, is super productive against the Taylor brothers. So that's not just a matchup of guards out there. We got 6'5" against 2 6'8" for the Canyon and Corbin out at Valley. That's at South Plains. Believe that is tonight. Yeah. So Groover and Lipan tonight at Brownfield, and Monday in Valley tonight at South Plains. So, yeah, a lot of good small school hoops. We got 6 games on tonight that I'll be paying close attention to.
And where are y'all going tomorrow, Tim?
The doozy, Region 3 versus Region 4, Atascocita versus Brennan.
Lyndon?
Think I'm going to SMU, Lovejoy versus Manfield Summit, so we can have some footprint of it on social media while the game's actually happening.
Blue?
Going to Hebron High School to watch Birdville and Frisco Heritage.
And I'll have if y'all have seen my tweets, I have 86 games on at a time on my screens over here. So I'll be streaming in my bunker. Before we go, Blue, pick your 6A state champion. Just kidding. We'll see y'all next week, fellas. Good luck to everybody playing. Peace.